Good afternoon, everyone, and I'd like to welcome you to this September 24th, 2018 special meeting of the Sustainability Commission because we are not on our usual schedule of third Tuesdays. We're delighted that all of you are here. I've asked Commissioner Carl Baker if he would lead us in the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Commissioners, just a quick question. The question has been raised about whether or not it's required to have the flag salute at meetings. Jay, is that a requirement, tradition?
It is not a requirement, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Would the commission like to agendize that as a discussion item at a future meeting, whether or not to include that on the agenda?
Yes.
All right. I see at least a few people who would like to do that, so we will agendize that perhaps for October. All right. Dan, if you would do the roll call, please.
Chair Jackson.
Present.
Vice Chair Clark.
Present.
Commissioner Baker. Here. Commissioner Friedman.
Here.
Commissioner Gauthier.
Here.
Commissioner Goins.
Here.
Commissioner McCann.
Present.
Commissioner Santora.
Here.
Commissioner Wilson.
Here.
And Commissioner Futterman is excused.
Yes. You all did see the email of the notice of the resignation of Commissioner Spry due to family matters, an immediate resignation. I just wanted to acknowledge that publicly in the meeting, and even during her brief tenure, the passion and energy that she brought to the commission, and so I just wanted to publicly thank her. The agenda was posted as per city protocol. I'd like to ask if we could accept the agenda with the one change of moving item E1, where we need to hear from Amy Blaisdell, our City Communications Director. If we could move that to the staff comments section so that she can be present for another meeting and won't have to wait. Is there a motion to accept the agenda with that change? Commissioner Santora, second from Commissioner Goins. All in favor say yes. Yes. Opposed say no, and we have an agenda. Thank you very much. City manager, staff comments. Jay, I'll turn to you first. If you have anything that you want to say.
I believe everything is on the
point.
agenda, and our discussion with Amy would be good.
Okay, please, Amy, come up to the microphone and.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. Commissioner Jackson and Commissioner Clark asked me to give you an update on our transition from gas-powered leaf blowers to electric and what we're doing to get the word out. So the city actually sent out a brochure to our landscapers to let them know this is coming. I brought a couple of them if you want to pass them. There you go.
On the screen as well.
Oh, perfect. And so they've all received those. We are going to be developing a citywide mailer with our public relations consultant, discussing the new ordinance, when it goes into effect, and exchange programs. Once we get that information from AQMD, we're still waiting to get that. I actually did have a conversation with their staff a couple days ago, and they informed me that they should have most of the information available about their commercial electric lawn and garden incentive exchange program by the end of October. at that time, they'll let us know whether or not we're going to be eligible for certain funding, whether or not we'll be considered an environmental justice area, or potentially, I was told there would be some other avenues for funding, which would be excellent. Once we do get more information from AQMD, we're planning on organizing a workshop for late October or sometime in November for landscapers and gardeners to learn more about the electric leaf blower usage, how to use them, and exchange programs through the designated manufacturers, et cetera. And ideally, all of that information that we get from AQMD will be in the citywide mailer. We hope that once we get the information, that will be in people's mailboxes, hopefully by mid-November. Any questions?
Do you feel from a PR point of view that, or from and Jay, you can comment, city regulations, is this a really tight window? I know how code enforcement happens anyway, but we do have this January 1
Right.
ordinance date. Are we all feeling
It's a
okay?
little tight, but I think we'll be fine. My goal would be that we get that information by late October. I was told they're going to have it, and I've had a couple conversations with them. They're very aware of what we're doing, and so I think we're on their radar, and they're really willing to help us. So I expressed to them, the sooner the better. So I think if we can get that mailer out, it'll probably be by mid-November. We'll be in pretty good shape because it's going to go to all of the residents of Palm Springs, and we're going to really reach out to the landscapers, the gardeners, with a workshop. And the one thing I forgot to mention is we'll be doing that in Spanish language as well, so that we're really making sure we reach out to everyone that's using them and potentially would want to exchange for a commercial blower.
Commissioners, do you have questions of Amy?
None? Okay.
Okay, I do
Sure.
have one. And maybe perhaps this is my mistake from the last time that you spoke, or in some communication that I had from your office. In our agenda item E1, I had thought that you had said that perhaps you might be coming to us with a request to approve an expenditure of additional sustainability funds for radio and media exposure that would be above and beyond.
We may be doing that. The city manager and I have to meet on that. There's a very good chance we'll be doing some radio spots, potentially on different, like La Ponderosa and some of the more popular radio stations that reach the Latino community. We have a PR consultant that's been helping us with some of the diversity issues. So that's in progress. So once I get a chance to meet with the subcommittee and the city manager about that, we likely will agendize that at your next meeting.
Okay, so at this point, we should entertain a motion to table that. I mean, since it is in our agenda, we should have a motion to table. Is that correct?
I would say so. That would probably be the most intelligent thing to do. And once I get a little bit more information, I'll let you know.
Okay. Right. Is there somebody who wants to, or can the chair?
Mr. Chair, just a question on that.
Please.
So if we table it, that means it's going to be on the agenda for next month. Are you certain that you're going to be prepared to make a recommendation to us?
Well, I just don't know yet if I need to talk to the subcommittee about what their thoughts are on this. My belief is they'll want to do some marketing.
Yeah. Well, and T, I think when it's tabled, anybody who wants to help me with parliamentary procedure, I'm happy. But I think when it's tabled, it's tabled until somebody brings it back to the table.
Okay.
So not necessarily October. It's whenever we might hear from Amy or other city staff.
I think you're right, and I will move to table it.
All right.
Yeah,
I
and just so you know, I'm meeting with them within the next couple days, so I should have a pretty good idea of what they're thinking. And
all right. I
I'll
don't
keep
think
you
motions
posted.
to table require a second. All in favor of tabling, say yes?
Yes.
Okay, all right, we've tabled that. Anything else that's come to mind?
I don't know yet.
Amy, if you wouldn't mind, send that brochure or those
Sure.
couple
I've got a
around
few, so I'll
both
just pass them
directions.
around.
Yeah, so that people, everybody gets a chance to see them, and if somebody wants to keep one, they can. So,
Absolutely.
Okay. all
And
right.
we've got them in the lobby, and, you know, obviously we appreciate all the help that you provide, just
Okay.
getting the word out.
Well, and thank you for your help in moving this along as quickly as possible. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Right. Okay, so we do have some extras if anybody needs them. And these are the ones that were mailed to the landscape businesses. Okay, thank you.
Correct.
All right, Jay, I'll be back to you. You said nothing else from you today?
That's correct.
That's not already on the agenda. All right, thank you. Is there any representative from another commission, planning or Parks and Rec, that is here to speak to us today? Don't see anyone. You're okay. Did you have a report that you wanted to make at this time? No, I can wait. Okay, all right. And we do not at present have a student liaison from Palm Springs High. All right, we are at public comments. At each meeting of the Sustainability Commission, we have time for the general public to address us on issues that are a part of our general purview. 3 minutes. If you wish to speak, we invite you to come forward to the microphone and push the button so you're a part of the recording. And identify yourself, your name and your city, please. And I think, the magic button is down there with Greg. Did you want to operate it?
I don't know how.
Oh, all right. All right. There you go.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name's Paul Henriksen, Palm Springs resident. And if you can pass these around, this is something to help as we go forward, looking to get a resolution of support from the Commission for a citywide no smoking ordinance. Really what this does is a cover page hits the major points of the ordinance so that in the future when we're on the agenda and there's some discussion, we can really narrow it down to where do we have more work to do to resolve any concerns and where are things that we're really already covered and have some support for going forward. And I'll leave the status report of the county ordinance that we've discussed in the past to Commissioner Baker's report. And that was about it. I just wanted to share that with you, and we look forward to continuing to work with you on the citywide no smoking ordinance. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
This was also emailed to you earlier this afternoon.
Sure. And so, I guess just a question. So this is, basically, this is just key areas and definitions, right? It's not,
Correct.
there is not and topics that would need to be addressed. Okay.
Right, because it
Okay.
seemed that the 18-page ordinance was a little overwhelming, and so breaking it down to bullet points on the front makes it a little more digestible
Okay.
and easier for conversation.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, is there anyone else who wishes to speak in public comment? All right, hearing no other person speaking, public comment is closed. And I did want to, since you're here from Parks and Recreation and observing, tell us your name. Janice Lopez. Welcome, Janice. We're glad that you are here and part of our meeting tonight. Thank you.
Janice will be speaking on an item later in the agenda, Mr. Chair.
Okay, great. Welcome. And I think everybody else is on the agenda somewhere. Our presentation tonight is from Alejandro Espinosa from the Desert Healthcare District. He has been instrumental from the very beginning in the health information place or Health Info Place website. Commissioner Baker, was there any introduction you wish to give?
Basically, I stumbled upon this website and this whole thing through a process at work at Desert Age Project. So I thought it would be appropriate to share the wealth. It's a great resource for all types of health and social activities, wellness things throughout the Coachella Valley that's available to the entire public.
And I think I might have mentioned this a couple of meetings ago. The Sustainability Commission, through the mayor's Race and Wellness Festival, raised money, and one of the years we donated, I think, upwards of $50,000 toward getting this website developed.
Yes, sir.
So we were really a part of the ground floor of this. So
Great.
Welcome, Alejandro. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Carl, thank you for the invitation. It's a great pleasure to be here. I just wanted to show you guys. So CVHIP.com was developed in collaboration with the City of Palm Springs, to primarily work with our case managers, a lot of our service providers, healthcare providers, in their efforts to give referrals to their patients that maybe for the services that they might not provide in-house. So, there are a lot of, websites out there. There's Riverside 211, but a lot of the services there are pretty much countywide. So CVHIP.com was created in efforts to bring all of those resources here in the Coachella Valley under one centralized website. So the best way that I like to explain CVHIP.com is pretty much a Google search for health and wellness services that are specific to the Coachella Valley. And just let me show you guys a couple of the features. So what you see here on the screen is our landing page. And if we click on search, it brings us to our directory. So just like any directory that you could use on a Google search, Yahoo, whatever search engine you use, you have the search bar here. So you could type in any service, health and wellness service, you'll type it in there and you'll get search results. But here in the bottom, we also have different categories with what we call binders. And you see the little icon there is actually a little binder. And this website was created for us by Purple Binder. Is two brothers. One of them was a social worker. One of them was working for a tech company. And he said, you know what? One brother told the other, he says, you know what? I'm going to replace that ugly purple binder with all of those community resources that have coffee stains, scribbles all over them. So they pretty much, decided to start this company. And it's a great company and great partners for us to work with. So what you see here, we have common concerns for health-related issues. We have educational services, anything from scholarships to job training. We have financial and legal assistance. We have food and nutrition services, healthcare services, sports and recreation, a section dedicated just for seniors, a section dedicated just for youth. We also have targeted services. We have sports and recs, and then we also have transportation. So if I click on any of these, for example, let's say I have a family member or I myself have diabetes and I'm looking for information about diabetes, I just click on the little icon there, and then it takes me to this page, which first it gives me a map of the Coachella Valley with all of those different little pins on there represent a service that is diabetes related. So what I could do is I could click on those, pins, or I could just scroll down here on our screen. And let's say, for example, I live in India, so I need some information. So I click on this first service, and then it brings up a profile for that particular service. So it gives me a brief description of what it is, the services that they offer, another description, a little bit more detailed. On the right-hand side, it has the program website, not just, the website of the organization that's providing the service, but the actual, landing page for that particular service. So we eliminate you having to click 5 to 6, 7 times on a particular website to get to this service. And then it has some contact information, and it also has the physical address. This is mobile friendly. You could use it on your cell phone, you could use it on a tablet or on a desktop, and it has hyperlink. Let's say I want to find out a little bit more about this and how to get there to this service located on Monroe Street in Indio. So I could click directions, and it brings up Google Maps for me. So it makes it really, really easy for me to get to that place. Another great feature about this is that it has a little bit more information about the languages spoken, the eligibility criteria, which this payment is free, and then how to apply. And that also has a hyperlink on there. The great thing about this is that, let's say if I'm a caseworker, a social worker, and I have somebody that needs this service, I could actually print out this form for them, or I could actually email it to them, to their personal email, so they have the link for this service. Another great thing about this is, like any resource directory that's ever printed, by the time it hits your hand, it's out of date. So the great thing about this website is that we have a tech company that hosts the website for us, and they call the 400 organizations quarterly to ensure that the information is up to date. And the organizations also themselves could edit the information by hitting the feedback button here, and they could say, hey, we have a new project, a new program, or we had a grant-funded program that is no longer around. Please take it away, remove it from our profile, so we make sure that people are not getting referred to this service. So it's a really great resource tool. Another great thing about this is that it's in 2 primarily languages, so we have English and Spanish. So if I click Spanish, it translates all of the information for me in Spanish. Another great thing, in case we have somebody else that speaks outside of English and Spanish, you name it, we could translate it. You want information in Russian, there it is. So it's really, really great resource tool, right? Especially for our out of town visitors that come to the Valley. They might need, some information on a healthcare service, or maybe just trying to find a trail. Here in our beautiful Valley, they're able to, to translate this and utilize this program. So it's very simple. As you can see on there, there are no hyperlinks on there. There's no pop-up ads. There's no ads. It's very clean. And we did a focus groups with the seniors at Mizell, and they loved it, because nothing on here is going to take them away from their website. So it's a really, really powerful tool. With some of the case managers, they're at DAP and other organizations where I've given this presentation, they're telling me that we're saving them anywhere between 10 to 15 minutes per patient, because they don't have to open up multiple windows, and make multiple calls to ensure that maybe they want to refer somebody to try to inquire about the different services, if it's still operational, their hours, all of that stuff. It's all in one website. So you might have seen we did a small pilot public marketing campaign with some bus shelter ads. We had some billboards, and we did run some ads on the Desert Sun and TV and radio that yielded amazing results. Right now, we're averaging about 1,300 visitors monthly, which translates roughly about anywhere between 50 to 60 visitors. And this is not a Yahoo or a Google that we're going to have thousands of visitors to the website, but 50 or 60 people daily are possibly getting connected to a health and wellness service here in the Coachella Valley. And in some cases, it might be a case worker, case manager, social worker that is connecting multiple people throughout the day. So, we're very proud that, the city had a great vision for this and has been a partner since I know, Joe, you were one of the trainees there, Commissioner, and it was wonderful that, your support was there from the beginning, and it's a wonderful, resource for the community to use, and that's pretty much it. Like I said, it's a very simple and easy website to use.
Commissioners, do you have questions of Alejandro? Alejandro, is there ongoing public relations with healthcare professionals and places that would make use of this and the general public? You said you did a pilot marketing program, but it would seem like you got to just keep telling people. Is there a plan for that?
Yes, actually, my role now at the Desert Healthcare District and Foundation as outreach director. That's one of my primary roles is to go out, and give this presentation to multiple, community agencies that could benefit from this service. Not only them, but also their patients. We've done presentations at Desert AIDS Project with their case managers. The Riverside County Department of Social Services. We've actually connected with the Palm Springs Unified School District parent liaisons, to give them the information as well. So we're hitting the ground, and we're getting ready. Hopefully by the end of the year, or if not early next year, to do a valley-wide public marketing campaign. So right now we're just targeting the organizations.
Okay, great. All right, and we've got your bookmark.
A little bookmark. We have them in English and Spanish, and I left some additional ones here on the table. So if you guys want to take a little bit with you.
Okay.
Great.
Yes, Commissioner
I do have
Santora.
a question.
Yes.
How is this ongoing funded? Or is it ongoing funding, or do you have to raise the funds as you go, or?
It's actually one of the programs, great question, it's one of the programs that is funded internally at the Desert Healthcare District. And this is we found this very necessary, because a lot of, organizations were spending a lot of time, or in some cases, they didn't even know where to refer to. Or in some individuals, they don't know some of the services that exist out in the community. So this is a great place for, to capture all of that information in a very simple to use website. Mm-hmm.
Yes, Commissioner Friedman.
I assume this would be very useful information, particularly for our homelessness task force. And if you haven't already, would suggest that you arrange, I think probably with Council Member Holsted, who I believe is leading that effort, because I think that this would be a very good presentation as well for the next meeting or a subsequent meeting of our City Council, or sort of the homelessness subcommittee / task force.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. I'll definitely reach out to her. Great. Yeah.
Alejandro, thank you for your
Chair
time,
Jackson?
taking your after-hours time to be here. Thank you.
No worries. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Great, we're at item C, meeting minutes, our last regular meeting of July 17th, 2018. The minutes were emailed to you initially, basically correct, and then a couple of minor corrections. You received that email more recently. Is there a motion to accept those minutes as corrected?
So moved. Second.
So moved from Commissioner Baker and second from Commissioner Santora. All in favor say yes. Yes. Opposed say no. And we've approved our minutes. Thank you. Gary Calhoun is here for our recycling report.
Good evening. Since we last met, thank you. Since we last met, the annual report has been submitted. The beverage container expenditure certification, which tells the state how we spent the money, has been submitted, and we've received the application for the fiscal year 18 and 19. So that'll be due the first part of December. We also had a conference call and a site visit from Andrews with and from Andrew Smith of Cal Recycle with the state. He emphasized SB 1836, and that's the 20% of edible food that has to go to food banks beginning in 2022. But it's going to take some upscaling to do and getting ready to do. So I appreciate the state giving us the heads up this far out so we can prepare with the food banks and other agencies and facilities throughout the Coachella Valley that need the food scraps. He also again emphasized AB 1826, which is the mandatory organics recycling, because 1 January it goes to 4 cubic yards of waste, not just organics material, but waste. So that will include almost everyone. So he again emphasized that, and the city is going to go out to some of the people that aren't participating on a city letterhead for both 1826 and AB 341, which is the mandatory commercial recycling, like your stores and things like that, to make sure that they're getting rid of their cardboard and such. And overall, the state is very pleased with the city's efforts. We went out to a couple of site visits. I think we went out to Smoke Tree, and I believe we went to 2 multi-housing units, and he went and checked some of the trash enclosures and things like that, and overall he was very pleased with the city's efforts. We also emptied the waste bin over in the public works yard and all of the e-waste that the IT department had. Our next shred event is Saturday, October 20th, from 8 a.m. to 12 noon here at City Hall parking lot. And I think that's it. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Commissioner Goins?
I had a question about the 4 cubic yards of organic waste. Can you say a little bit more about that ordinance?
Beginning 1 January 2019, it currently is 4 cubic yards of organic waste. Beginning 1 January 2019, it converts to 4 cubic yards of waste, just trash. So that includes everybody, because not everyone meets that criteria or that barrier of 4 cubic yards of waste.
So if you are above that threshold, then what's the requirement?
That you recycle that. That you
Okay,
participate in
100%
the
recycling, yeah.
commercial organics recycling program.
Yeah, you're talking about commercial, this is all commercial, right?
At this point, it's commercial, but it is, my understanding is it is gonna extend to residential in the future. They're gonna start residential recycling, organics recycling. But that's down the road a ways.
And Gary, is it 100% right away of all, or is it more the graduated getting to 100%?
Well, that's the problem, because there aren't any teeth in it currently. So let's say that you produced 4 cubic yards of solid waste. One of that was organics. If you did one 32-gallon container a week, that's participating. That may only capture 20% of it, but that's participating. And that's the downside of it. There's no enforcement mechanism in the legislature.
All right, both Commissioner Friedman and Commissioner Baker had their hands up. Commissioner Friedman.
What is the sort of the cycle of why, if the commercial entity recycles, then what happens to it? They put it in, the container. Who takes the container? Does it go to Edom Hill? Is there, subsequently processed into compost or fertilizer? So basically, what's the end part of the cycle on that?
Palm Springs Disposal is the waste hauler, and they service the commercial and organics recycling as well. The organics recycling is collected in separate trucks, and it's transported down to the Coachella Vertex Coachella's, I'm having a hard time, Vertex compostable facility in Coachella. And that's where it's handled. It's put into windrows. I don't know if you went on the tour up to SA Recycling or not. Yes. It's almost the same, exactly the same process down there, on a much grander scale.
Okay, so it is actually put into recyclable sort of compost, just as we saw at SA, exactly the same thing, where people can then go buy that, and that's how it's recycled.
Yes.
Perfect, thank you.
Commissioner Baker.
My question is, how would a business owner know when they reach this threshold of 4 cubic feet?
Because letters have been sent out to every applicable entity, letting them know that as of this date, you will be required to do this.
Let me rephrase my question. I have no idea what 4 cubic feet of waste is.
It's a measurement.
I know what I know.
Well, I'm trying to describe it for you. It's the usual white bin or blue bin that you might see for recycling or trash, except it's one panel taller. It takes up the same footprint, but it's one. So that's what it is.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, Commissioner
Dave,
McCann.
Just to clarify, that's the dry fraction that goes to that facility, the Vertex facility. The wet organics fraction still goes to landfill.
What?
Right. The wet fraction is just part of your normal waste. It's not separated out into the dry organics, yard waste, and that sort of thing.
When we're talking about organics, we're talking about right now commercial organics, so they're collected at the restaurants and the destination resort hotels and things like that. Those are put in separate containers at those locations, and then they're picked up and transported to the Vertex facility in Coachella for composting. That's not dry.
And that's wet. Okay.
Yeah.
Other questions? All right. Thank you, Gary.
Thank you.
Thank you for being on top of all of this.
Well, the state does a good job of keeping us in the game and letting us know what's coming down the pike. So
Good.
we're appreciative of that.
All right, we are at old business, and we have dispensed with E1, so we are at item E2, a report on the hiring of a manager for the Office of Sustainability. Commissioner Goins and Vice Chair Clark have represented us at the request of city manager ready. Who wants to speak briefly to that?
Commissioner Goins and I met with City Manager Reddy and Perry Madison, head of HR, about the middle of August. And HR had received a considerable number of applications, and they narrowed the number down considerably because of just requirements for experience in the area of sustainability and educational background and so forth. So they shared with us the remaining applications at that time. Commissioner Goins and I went through the applications that were given to us, and we made recommendations about a week later, and we reported that to our recommendations to Perry, and he said that his staff would start working on setting up interviews, and that's the last that we interacted on that subject.
The interviews have been scheduled for next week. Just so you know.
And there was some talk about either a commissioner either sitting in on that. Is that still expected, or do you know?
I don't know the latest that may have come out of the meeting you had with Mr. Madison and the city manager.
Okay.
But my understanding was that from this point forward, it would be staff managing. I'm not sure though. So if they've given you any indication otherwise.
We did discuss with them participating in the interviews, but we haven't been notified. At least I haven't.
Okay. So interviews scheduled the first week of October.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. We are at new business. Item 1 is on the agenda based on the prior report. I know that Waste Reduction has a complete report later, but a few motions we pulled out because you had submitted them earlier. So your report about the ordinance requiring a request-only policy for single-use plastic straws. We do have that motion on the agenda tonight. The motion that was submitted in that report previously was to recommend to the City Council, recommend that the City Council adopt an ordinance implementing a request-only policy for single-use plastic straws for all beverage supplying venues. That motion comes to us from the committee, so it does not require a second.
Point of information.
Please.
Since the state has passed this law beginning effective January 1st, does this render this moot?
Well, they can answer that. The state law is not all beverage supplying venues. It's full service restaurants. But
yeah,
you folks speak to that.
I can address this now if you like. That's correct. And so we had a meeting with Christie about this, Councilmember Holstage, in August. And at that point, before this bill was passed, we were talking about restricting our own to making straws request only. Larger numbers of venues in Palm Springs than the state has done. The state has done it just for restaurants of a certain size. But anyway, when this bill was passed, we're revisiting this. We're going to be meeting with council members Holstage and Coors about it on October 2nd, and we're going to change our recommended ordinance. Some of the areas that we're talking about changing it, yes, is to make ours more comprehensive, to take into account fast food restaurants, for example, and to reintroduce into the ordinance a ban on styrofoam containers for takeout. So that's where it stands at the moment.
Commissioner Friedman.
I did have a couple of minutes to compare sort of what you drafted with AB 1884, which of course was just signed last week, and probably the shortest piece of state legislation I have ever
Yes,
seen.
yes.
Barely a page and a third, so that was a quick read, and I was pleasantly surprised. But I think in the draft that you sent, you talked about compliance forms, and AB 1884 being brief does not have that. It has some penalties of $25 a day, maximum of $300 a year. So I was just wondering how you are going to sort of handle enforcement when you come back with this. And I understand you will be coming back because we want to retool it. Will you be mirroring more of AB 1884 on those issues, or will we have sort of a specific Palm Springs regime? And if we're having a specific Palm Springs regime, is that similar to what some of the other cities that have already adopted local ordinances are doing?
That's a good question, and I don't have an answer for it at this point. Have not gone there yet.
Okay, just a request as you work with council subcommittee to sort of look into particularly enforcement and penalties and implementation to make sure that we're not sort of subject to the argument saying, well, the state doesn't do this, so why do we have to do it, et cetera. Thank you.
Yes, Vice Chair Clark.
Just to follow up on that, as Rob will report, we do have a meeting scheduled of our Waste Reduction Committee next Tuesday with Christy and Jeff, and I think we're going to take a step backwards and look at all possible options for the ordinance.
So therefore, we probably should entertain a motion to table this until we hear, and it can be off the table forever, and you can bring back a new motion.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best way to do it.
All right, so is there such motion? Move to table from Commissioner Santora. All in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed say no. All right, and it is tabled pending a further report from the subcommittee and their meeting with council members. All right, well, we're moving right along. We're at item 2. We welcome Megan Goring from the Palm Springs Cultural Center, the Farmers Market Manager. It's always nice to see you and to have your support of sustainability. So we look forward to hearing what you have to say tonight.
Okay, thank you. It's a delight to be here. Thank you very much. So I wanted to bring the topic of our sustainable film series. I was looking back at some of the paperwork from past years, and I realized that this is actually the 5th year we'll be having our sustainable film series held at the historic Camelot Movie Theater here in Palm Springs, right down the road on Barristo Road. And we've enjoyed a great partnership with the Sustainability Commission. The commission has supported us financially so that we can retain the rights to show these films. And also we've had a partnership, especially in the past year, with commissioners participating at our farmers market, tabling at our farmers market to talk about the various works of the commission itself. So it's been a wonderful collaboration over the past 4 years. So going forward, I wanted to share with the commission some changes that we've made to the proposed film series for the coming year. One thing that we've noticed over the past couple of years is that although when we first started the series we enjoyed a robust participation, we've noticed that in its form as it's been over the past 4 years, showing the films on Saturday mornings at 9 o'clock, that we've had fewer and fewer participants coming at that hour. And so we have a new team actually working with the Cultural Center. We're celebrating 10 years of our nonprofit organization this year. And so we tossed around some ideas about how we could encourage greater participation in the film series. And we've decided to move the screenings to Thursday evenings once per month. So far we have 4 dates on the calendar for 2019. Most of them are the last Thursday evening. So that's February the 28th, March the 29th, April the 25th, and May the 30th. And in the interest of sustainability, I can provide this information in an email form so that I don't have to hand out a bunch of paperwork. We might add a January date. As most of you probably know, January is a very busy month in the city of Palm Springs, and it's especially busy for the Palm Springs Cultural Center. We have, of course, the International Film Festival at the beginning of the month, but with our expanded programming at the Cultural Center, right now we don't have an open date, Thursday or any other day, but there is a possibility that a date could open up, so we'll see what happens with that in the next month or so. So in addition to showing the films in the evenings, on Thursday evenings once per month, we are also going to be adding sustainable food and wine tasting ahead of the screening. And this will be free of charge, open to the public. So the food and wine tasting will be from 5 o'clock to 5:30 in the upstairs section of the theater, with the films beginning at 5:45. We have obtained the services of Annie Arnold with Organic Wine Exchange, who's going to be doing a different tasting for every event. And then we'll also have local chefs providing food using produce from the certified farmers markets. So we actually have a wonderful stable of chefs that are local that use our markets as a resource for their recipes. And so we have quite a few to choose from. So we're looking forward to talking with the chefs that we know and finding some that are willing to participate in this event. So the benefits of changing the format of this event are hopefully to expanding our participant base, that we'll get more people to come to the events because it'll be in the evenings during the week. Of course, we're adding dimension to the event with the tastings at the beginning. And then of additional benefit to us for our nonprofit is that we can connect with new participants who may not have time to participate on Saturdays, who've never heard of the film series, and expose them to all of the programming at the Palm Springs Cultural Center. So next up, I wanted to let you know we do not have titles yet for the films, for the 4 dates that we have, but I'd like to ask if I could come back later in the fall once we have those dates and share that information with you once we have the films themselves and share that, and also get some ideas of how we can better promote together the series and get people aware of the fact that we've changed the day and the time, and get your input on that. In the past, the commission here has helped us with some funding, and we would like to ask if that was something that was possible for this series as we move forward. In the past, the commission has provided with us $750 to obtain the licensing and rights to show the films, which has been extremely helpful in the past. The films are anywhere from $100 to $300 to purchase the rights to show the films publicly.
We can agendize that. I didn't bring a copy of the budget, but I wouldn't be surprised if we don't have that in the budget somewhere.
We do have that in the budget, yeah.
Okay, it is. Okay, the Sustainability Film Series. Is there a specific number? We can check.
I can check on that.
Okay, so what we can do is, if it's already in the budget, we've already adopted the budget, so I don't think it would require any other action from the commission. If we don't find it there clearly enough, we'll put that on the agenda and review that, and I think that's a likely scenario. I don't want to speak for the commission, but
I have a question.
Yes.
It sounds like you're talking about a line item that we've already adopted in the budget, but it also sounds like you don't know what the cost is going to be because you don't know the films yet. Is that
That's correct. That's
so
correct.
you'll have that number when you actually schedule them? Or do you have to have it before?
Well, or are you saying you're asking $750 from us and the cultural center is going to make up the difference?
Right. In the past, if we went over the amount, then the cultural center covered the cost.
Yeah. So, all right. And I will just say I've had experience with Annie Arnold and her organic wine tasting events, and so she'll be a great draw, and she has her own network, and I think the network of the Cultural Center will help be a draw as well. So it is still, just like with the Health Info Place, it's all about getting the word out. So thank you. Other commissioners, questions of Megan?
Thank you for your time. Really appreciate it.
Sounds exciting.
I had one question.
Oh,
Did-
sure.
Yes.
Are you
Commissioner
looking for
Guthrie.
any support from the commission other than just monetary support?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, I'd like to come back and talk about the films that we've chosen for this year once we've chosen them, and also solicit suggestions and possible help for promotion of the series.
Yeah, because I think that our ad hoc committee on the film festival would be interested in participating and acting as the liaison to their group on this, now that this is moving to the evening, and future comments
Sure.
later in the agenda will say why.
We have, Megan, we have two commissioners, Commissioner Gauthier and Commissioner Futterman, who is not present tonight, who are working on the possibility of some sort of film event, I'll just put it that way. Perhaps it might make sense, Dan, could you email Jen, Commissioner Futterman, and Commissioner Gauthier's email address to Megan? And that way, the three of you will at least know who you are, and that is a very logical connection.
Yes, I'll
with the
look forward
commission, because
to hearing what else you have planned,
Yeah.
because of course film is integrally important to our nonprofit. So I would like to know what else you have on your agenda.
Yeah, yes, Dan.
Just to let Greg know too, in the past, we have provided little flyers and posted on the city sustainability website about the films and the upcoming, when they're going to be played.
Okay. And then one other question that I had for the commission was, do you plan, we're getting ready to reopen for our outdoor season, the first Saturday of October, and does the commission plan to do tabling at the outdoor market starting in October and going forward?
Vice Chair Clark has been our most faithful
So grateful. It's been great
person.
having you.
And the answer is yes. I spoke to Dan earlier, and we would like to start participating again October 6th. And in fact, we're also going to be partnering with Milkweed for Monarchs. We will be getting some plants early in October, so we'll be setting up plants along with the sustainability information. And we also would probably be partnering with the DWA and as well with the plants.
Okay, that sounds terrific. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, Commissioner Goins.
I just looked at our budget request, and I believe we have $2K for the sustainability film series in our budget.
Oh.
Terrific.
All right.
Well,
So-
considering we're expanding our programming, that will be helpful.
Thank you, John, because you were one of our budget coordinators. And so that gives us also then some funds for us to help with some additional promotion perhaps, or other sorts of things. So-
Right, yeah, we've had actually very good success doing boosted posting on social media, like in Facebook. And it's really helped get the word out about the events that we've done in the past year. So perhaps that's one use for additional funding if we have some beyond the purchase of the rights to show the films.
Okay, all right, great. John, thank you very much. Others?
Ideally, what is the demographic who are we trying to draw in terms of marketing and thinking?
Right. Well, in the past, when we have had participants come to our film series, primarily we've been targeting people who were already interested in our event taking place on Saturday mornings. So I don't know that we haven't actually done sort of detailed polling to know exactly who our target market was, but I would say the majority of our participants were retired adults, but that may have to do with the demographic of the farmers market because that's when it was held. But I would certainly like to expand those demographics to include younger people, possibly students, if we, depending upon the films that we show, people who would otherwise be busy on a Saturday morning with other activities.
I say that with the idea that there is an existing film, I'm going blank on the name, that David puts together for the middle school and high school. Yeah, Digicom. So students like that and their parents and educators, and that could be a logical draw.
Right, absolutely. There's actually a film that one of the film series that we sponsor and promote and organize is the Documentary Film Festival, AMDocs, that takes place in the springtime. And one of the films that we showed at this past year's AMDocs had a sustainable theme, and it followed 3 different protagonists over the course of a year. And one of the protagonists was a Girl Scout in Los Angeles, and her quest to request that the Girl Scout, the nationwide Girl Scout organization, remove GMOs from their cookies. And so it was a really terrific film, and actually that's like one of my top picks. We're going to try to get that film. It was really wonderful, and that would have appeal sort of across the spectrum, including students. So yeah, definitely.
Exciting stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, and fun stuff. We deal with a lot of waste, so it's kind of nice to hear something fun and artistic. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. And also, if any of the commissioners have suggestions about films that you have seen that you think would be well received by the public, we would certainly welcome your suggestions as well. Thank you.
All right, we're at item 3, a report on the Neighborhoods USA Conference, the NUSA conference, which will actually be held in Palm Springs in May of 2019. And there has been a request that we put our name as co-sponsors of 2 workshop tours at the conference. There is no cost to the commission, but for us to be listed as a co-sponsor, we wanted that to be an agenda item. So I don't know if this is staff or if Commissioner Friedman, who's involved in this, wants to speak to it. Where do we begin?
I would defer to staff under the new public integrity ordinance. I'll be recusing myself from advocating or taking a position or voting on this, which is section 2.60040D as chair of the 1PS governance committee. Since it's assisting the city, it could be potentially viewed as an applicant. So I'll be not advocating a position, but available to answer any questions that staff or the commissioners may have.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Commissioner Friedman. Staff.
Commissioners, as the chair has pointed out, Palm Springs will be hosting the NUSA conference in May, and it's a very exciting time. Other commissions we know are participating with assisting with designing, developing tours that will be given to all the visitors from all over the country. And a request has come in to have at least 1 sustainability tour, and I believe 2 is what is being requested. And so as a co-sponsor, the Sustainability Commission would help in putting that tour together, ideas on what should be seen, where the tours should go, what type of educational information should be provided, and perhaps maybe an ad hoc subcommittee to work with the neighborhood councils, the neighborhood groups to put those tours together. I didn't see a dollar amount request in here, and the dollar amount is 0.
Now, why did I think the topics were already selected, or am I mistaken on that?
Oh, they are. It's just the finalizing of the tour to to, in terms of what should be presented, how the commission wants to be represented. The shape of our water will be one of them, and I'll just read this here from this information. Offered in conjunction with the Desert Water Agency, this tour will feature a field trip to our water supply facilities, demonstrating Western Coachella Valley water chain, and will include a hydro facility where water enters from the Colorado River Aqueduct, percolation ponds, a well site, and storage reservoirs. The second one is the Desert Renewable Energy, offered in conjunction with Windtech Energy. The Desert Water Agency and Coachella Valley Association of Governments on this tour will include a visit to the wind turbines, solar array, and the first phase of the CV Link Alternative Transportation Corridor. Now, if those sound acceptable to you, I suppose an action to approve would be appropriate.
Commissioner Baker.
So you say there's no cost, so this is just absorbed by the attendees paying their registration fee for the event?
That's correct.
Commissioner Santora?
Just a question about the tours. So they sound fine to me, but who's going to be leading these tours? What's the staff requirement for it?
Commissioner Friedman has information.
Yeah, I would be leading the Desert Renewable Energy Tour with the locations that have been mentioned, and Ashley Metzger would be leading the DWA tour. Those locations have already been agreed with her and are the same as DWA often does on their tours. So the locations have already been set. If anyone has any further input, that's fine. Just one point of information, as I mentioned in the email, the motion talks about workshops and tours. If the commission so decides to also include the workshops, because there is an objective to prepare a workshop, submit a workshop that would have to be approved. And those details would need to be worked out. Particularly, I would be probably doing this jointly with DWA, but also I think this would be good. And I mentioned the email that I sent. Once again, I'm not advocating, but it's point of information for the workshop. If we could also have some input from the subcommittee on waste reduction, because particularly if there is such a thing as if we get straws and styrofoam, that's a good model. And so that has not yet been worked out, but I would invite and be happy to have, in fact, an ad hoc subcommittee to work with somebody from Scour on that to come up with a joint proposal for a workshop, because I do think we should include waste reduction. Once again, not advocating, but it's point of information, as the motion reflected, that there also be approval of a workshop, details TBD.
Okay. All right. So maybe we have the information. I think if we say co-sponsor workshops / tours, that makes it all inclusive. There's and no cost. So is there this was a submitted motion, and I think staff alerted us to it. So we should have a second. Or maybe we should have someone move it actually from the commission. So let's do that. Is there someone who will move this item? So moved from Commissioner Santora, and a second from Commissioner Baker. Any other questions? And Commissioner Friedman is recusing himself, so all in favor say yes. Yes. All opposed say no, and it passes with Commissioner Friedman recusing himself. Now, it sounds like that what we need to do, though, is to appoint at least a connection or name officially the Waste Reduction Subcommittee as a connection to Commissioner Friedman for further consultation on workshops. Is that acceptable? Is Commissioner McCann, you're sort of our lead spokesperson in that group, so may I appoint you as the liaison?
You may.
Okay, all right, okay. I mean, I think the chair can do that. I mean, and that you're the group that we're interested in. All right, so maybe, have we accomplished what we think we need to do, staff and members, on that item? Okay.
And I'll report to tomorrow morning, the new Sator meeting, committee is meeting, so I'll provide the favorable report, and thanks to the fellow commissioners on that.
Okay, all right, great. Okay, we're at item number 4, which is a discussion regarding naming the community gardens in memory of Michelle Mycian, and an update on the status of the garden. Also, just of note, Commissioner Spry was sort of our commissioner to connect with the community gardens, and so that is, Commissioner Futterman said she would also be involved, but we're sort of vacant there, so.
Very good.
Staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I believe most of you, if not all of you, knew Michelle Mycian and all of her contributions towards building the city's sustainability programs to the point where they're at today. And in honor of the work she's done, our city manager has asked that we consider some kind of a tribute involving the community gardens. And here to assist, we have Janice Lopez. So,
welcome, Janice.
Thank you. So my idea was just basically let's do something in the honor of Michelle, since she did a lot, and I'm sure most of you guys worked with her. I wanted to do a little walk in the park at Demuth, just basically the parking lot to the cul-de-sac and back, and we would rename the community gardens in her honor. So something simple but meaningful.
Okay, is there a date you're thinking? And
Well, we have a couple things coming on at the park. We can do it next month because they will start reseeding first week of November.
okay,
So
so you're actually thinking of a date in late October?
probably the third week of October, which I believe was around her birthday.
Okay. And is there a name? Has someone decided on exactly what this is going to be called, or signage developed? Would that be ready by then? I support your thoughts. I just think you want it to be, if it's a renaming of the garden and almost sort of a rededication of that space, you want to do it right. And so would there be signage ready to unveil? Where are we with any of that?
it would be pending this discussion. We'd be at the very early phases of that, coming up with the concepts, and then, but it shouldn't take too long to pull that all together. If it's a sign, and event-wise, I believe we'd have some assistance from our other departments to make that happen.
Because you're a commissioner, Janice, on Parks and Rec, is that right? Or staff?
I'm staff.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes.
I apologize.
We also work with the special events, so
Okay.
recreation, basically, just like we've always worked hand in hand with Michelle. We can
Okay.
set that all up.
Okay, okay. So,
We should be able to get a plaque or whatever within that amount of time. And the thing tonight is for the commission to come up with a name, basically.
okay. Yes.
The
Commissioner.
Michelle Mycian Memorial Gardens? Triple MC?
Do we need the word community in it? I mean, I don't know, Michelle Mycian Community Garden. I don't know if you need the word memorial. Maybe you do, maybe you don't.
maybe you don't.
It's always interesting to have, a dozen people wordsmithing items. What? Wordsmith? That's. Where.
I think that having the community in there is important. Community garden is a concept that people understand from other locations, and
Well, it's not a rose garden. It's not a botanical
community
garden.
garden,
It's a
correct.
community garden.
Yes.
So,
And it has the name community right now. doesn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
You need a motion, Mr. Chair?
So it's a question whether to say memorial or not, is what it sounds like. We've
I think
distilled
Michelle
it to
Mycian Community Garden
Gardens.
or Michelle Mycian Memorial
Memorial Community
Community Garden.
That's what they're asking, whether or not they, or show of hands who wants memorial in there.
Could we be a little informal group? Is that all right? Who wants the word memorial in the name of the garden? I see two. Who does not want the name memorial in the garden? All right, and some people didn't have a vote, looks like. So it looks like our interest would be the Michelle Mycian Community Gardens. Should we motion? Should we have a motion for that now that we've done our straw poll? Maybe we should. Is there, okay, Commissioner Gauthier?
Second.
Okay, so the motion is to name it the Michelle Mycian Community Gardens. Okay, and a second from Commissioner Santora. Other discussion? All in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed say no. Abstention? And it passes. Janice, thank you. And I apologize. I don't know all the staff here.
No problem.
But thank you very much
Thank
for,
you.
for your time
Thank you.
this afternoon.
Thank you.
And so I assume Daniel and Jay and Janice, when you set the date, at whatever point you are organized for that, you'll be in communication with us and let us know when that might be. Correct. Okay. All right.
Correct.
Thanks so much. All right, we're at item 5. Again, some things we had pulled out of committee reports to highlight, thinking there might be more specific discussion that needed to happen, which is items 5 and 6. Those are covered in the Standing Subcommittee on Waste Reduction. Would you just as soon we hear them at that point, or do you want to discuss them independently?
I think we could probably leave them for the report.
And just
time.
move
Yeah.
through your report? All right. So then we'll take items 5 and 6, and they will be included in the written report submitted for G2, the Standing Subcommittee on Waste Reduction. All right. So we are at Committee and Commissioner reports. So the Standing Subcommittee on Solar and Green Building. Commissioner Friedman.
Okay, busy summer. First is that we've confirmed the program and speakers for the Energy Code Conference, which is on October 29th, starting at 8 a.m., which I think breakfast a little bit before that, at UCR in Palm Desert. Keynote speaker is from the Energy Commission, coming all the way down from Northern California, Sacramento. And I'm very pleased to report that our good friend Nate Otto will be serving as MC, and Hot Purple Energy will be one of our co-sponsors. So very happy to have brought that band back together again. Daniel has just right before the meeting circulated a draft flyer, which I'll be looking at tonight or tomorrow. We'll be getting outreach and registration in the next couple of days, and please spread the word. Daniel will get that posted on the website once it's blessed by everybody, and join us. Working very closely with CVAC, Katie Barrows in particular, and Gretchen Gutierrez of the Desert Valley Builders Association. So. Moving right along on that. We hope to have about 100 people or so there, and some staff from Palm Springs Building Department will be there. Next thing is that following our designation, remember that gold designation from the National League of Cities. So I've been working over the summer with the representative, NLC representative, someone from the National Renewable Energy Lab in Denver, to provide technical assistance on an update of the zoning code to ensure the barriers to the installation of solar are lifted before the statewide mandate goes into effect on January 1, 2020. I now, as of a few hours ago, have a draft that the technical experts have approved, and working closely with Flynn Fagg and his staff on the ordinance, and hope to be able to present that to our commission at either, depending on when staff has done their review, either October or November. Not want to make any promises at this point. Staff is very busy, so I'll get it back to you guys as soon as staff has done its review for a recommendation from our commission. Then it would go to planning commission and then ultimately to city council. So stay tuned on that one. But we've made a lot of progress on the summer. Next sort of up, and I had mentioned this before, is that I'm working with council member Middleton on sort of some next steps that we can take beyond the solar resolution that council approved at the beginning of the year. So I have a call with a representative of the Sierra Club on October 2nd, and we'll be attending a codes and standards workshop in the LA area on October 22nd to discuss some local ordinances that go beyond the energy code requirements. And then I'll come up with a policy proposal that also takes account of the executive order that Governor Brown just signed. You may have read about that. That's to achieve carbon neutrality by 2045, but if things that we can do here in Palm Springs, at least on a policy basis, to advance that particularly up to 2030, that's sort of the objective. So a lot more work to be done. That's probably the beginning of next year before I can come up with sort of, work with Councilmember Middleton and come up with a policy proposal that, once again, we would look at, go to planning and then up to the city council. So a lot of work there. As you probably have heard, Daniel mentioned Desert Community Energy has proposed their launch until sometime next year, and we'll continue to work with Katie Barrows and CVAG to publicize once they're ready for the rollout. And then finally, we are once again doing a sustainability and modernism workshop on February 23rd, Saturday at 2 p.m., and that's Commissioner Goins, so I'll turn it over to him on that.
So a very similar program to last year is our expectation. So we'll have a representative from the LA chapter of the U.S. Green Building Council, an interior designer and a landscape architect to talk about ways you can integrate modern design and sustainability. So we had about 75 people attend last year. This year we'll be charging a fee of $10 per ticket. Great material, so I think that's a reasonable charge. But hopefully we'll have a good turnout this year.
Great. Commissioners, questions about the Green Building and Solar Report? Lots going on. Thanks to both of you. All right, we're at the Standing Subcommittee on Waste Reduction. That would be Commissioner McCann, Vice Chair Clark.
Okay, we have 5 items that we reported on activity in the last 2 months. First one, the construction and demolition waste ordinance. We're still awaiting city council action on a revised ordinance that we submitted to them in April. The last I heard is they were going to try to get that ordinance through by December, so not sure what the status is at this point on that.
Do you want Jay or Dan to check on sort of where that is, or?
I can tell you we were directed to find more information from comparable cities and include that in a staff report to bring the item forward. So we are conducting the research at this point.
Very good. The takeout containers and plastic straws, we have already gone over that. Item 3, recycling containers in public parks. I'm very happy to be able to report that the city has started to deploy the new recycle containers in the parks. They're fully deployed in Ruth Hardy, and some of them have been deployed in Sunrise. I have not checked out the other parks to see if they are going in there yet, but it's great to see them out there and starting to get deployed.
Yeah, all of the ones that we received have been placed in city parks.
That's great.
And that's how many? How many did we get?
35, 34. There was one.
There were
damaged.
35 that we ordered that came in. One of them was damaged. So.
Okay.
Item number 4, managing organic material in the city's municipal solid waste stream and diverting it from landfill. Gary Calhoun has already gone over the various bills and laws that are coming into play that are going to require a larger fraction of organic waste to be diverted from landfill in the future than is happening today. And we've been exploring this initiative that would take the wet fraction of the city of Palm Springs' municipal solid waste stream. And instead of sending it to various places like landfill, instead it would go through a big pressure press that would press out the wet fraction, and that it produces kind of a sludge or a slurry, and then the slurry we would just mix with the city's current wastewater treatment water that's going through in their anaerobics digestion facility, and then create either natural gas or electrical power out of it. We briefed Councilmember Halstage on this initiative at our July 23rd Scour meeting, and her assessment was positive. She said, how do we make this happen? On August 16th, the company, Inertia, a representative, presented a draft version of their proposal to us, along with other stakeholders in the city. And we reviewed the presentation and made requests and suggestions for edits and changes. We iterated on that for a couple of weeks, and then on August 29th, the company representative, Yaniv Sherrison, completed a final version of the proposal. So it's out there. I think it was included in the, yeah, it's up there now. Let's see, I can show it now if the committee members would like to go through it or not. I think I'd leave that up to, how's our time?
It's what, 20-some frames?
Yeah. So happy not, happy to let you just
everybody
go over
got it in their packet.
Yeah.
Maybe we can, if
Yeah.
there are some if there's some really high-level comments you want to make about it that would help put in context our review. I mean, we've
I
already
think there
looked at
is. Let's do it that way.
Well, just, a couple of comments from you about it.
Just a couple of comments that one of the interesting aspects of it, we think is most interesting, is this fact that there's 2 anaerobics digestion facilities that are sitting there at the wastewater treatment plant now. One of them is not being used at all. There is also this press that I was telling you about that takes out the wet fraction. It could be run on 2 shifts each day instead of 1 shift. 1 day shift that would handle the city of Palm Springs waste, and then a second shift that could handle more. So the bottom line is that there is more capacity here than the city of Palm Springs needs. And what we are going to propose to City Council is that we go to other desert cities and say, why don't you start to bring your wet fraction to us for a tipping charge, and we will take care of it for you, and we'll process it. So that sounds to us like a real win-win situation, because that's revenue for the city that could offset the costs of these facilities and bring us in revenue. And then that would reduce the cost to our own residents here and businesses. That the proposal suggests that there will be an increase in our Palm Springs disposal fees each month from 5 to 10% in order to support this facility. But if we could get tipping fees from other cities, that could be reduced. So that would I say. Roy, do you have anything else that you?
No, other than the fact that we will be making this presentation to council members Coors and Holstage next Tuesday at 1:30, and I would encourage anybody on the commission who's available to attend that meeting. It's going to be in the small conference room.
Yes, all are definitely invited. So I think, yeah, that's, again, you can go over and look at it if you want. David, question?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. First of all, thank you. Is this similar technology to the one we saw out in Paris?
David, your mic.
Oh, sorry about that. I turned it off. Is this a similar technology to the one we saw out in Paris at their anaerobic digestion facility?
The simple answer is absolutely.
Okay.
Although the anaerobic digestion facilities that are down at the Palm Springs wastewater treatment plant have been there for decades.
Yeah.
So there will be some upgrades and retrofits that Energia is advocating here that would go into them in order to do this.
Okay, next question. You answered one question of what city revenue pays for this, and that would be just the PSDS charges that would cover this. Would the city then operate the system? It actually sounds that the city staff is already, they have the facilities and they're fully capable of running this plant once it's upgraded. Is that correct?
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
The press, the giant press we're talking about, is called Oryx. We have designated a location for it, which is on city land, which is right down there beside Palm Springs Disposal Services and the wastewater treatment plant. But so I suspect that it would be the company that would be running it rather than the city, even though it would be on city land, but I don't know the answer.
So that would be, so there would be an O&M, what we call an operation and maintenance agreement with them. It sounds like that's would be, okay, fine. And then there are the byproducts, which would be fertilizer or methane. City then, they essentially become the city owns them, and so the city is then responsible for marketing the byproducts that are produced.
The byproducts are either electrical power or methane.
Okay.
Not fertilizer.
Oh, okay.
There's two things that can happen. If the city wants power, then we could do power, and it would power something like 5,400 homes. It would be a considerable amount of power generated. Or if we go for methane or natural gas, Chris Cunningham can run his fleet with it, and then you go closed loop. The fleet is being, the energy to pick up the stuff in the trucks is being supplied by the facility.
Okay, but does then the city then sell it, or it goes back to PSDS, which would potentially reduce the tipping charge? I guess there's some sort of, that's among the things that would need to be worked out, because sort of the flow of funds to sort of, to look at that. And then my final question, because there is, and I don't know whether that's a motion that we were supposed to consider tonight. I thought it was on the agenda to recommend that the commission or the city, is that whether we're supposed to recommend that, but the city would pay $70,000 for the initial design. And I guess the question is that out of general fund? Is that out of commission budget? And can CFAG potentially come in and help out cover some of those expenses?
They might. The original agenda here was prefaced under the assumption that we would already have had this meeting with Coors and Holstage, and that they would have approved that as one of the next steps, is to pay the company the $70,000 to work up a more comprehensive proposal. That didn't happen, and so there's no action for the committee tonight. But that is one of the next steps, and if they agree to it in this meeting next week, then we will bring it back to the commission, because it's supposed to come out of the recycle fund.
Okay. So it would be out of our budget, but out of the recycle fund, and those funds are available. Okay.
Yeah.
About what? We have about $1 million in the recycling fund, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is approximately $70,000. Commissioner Goins.
Was the meeting October 2nd at 1:30? Okay, just wanted to be sure about that.
There's a TBD at this point whether this is going to be the first discussion point or the second discussion point of that meeting. It's going to handle both this and the plastic straws ordinance. And so we don't know yet whether it's going to be at 1:30 or 2:15. That we'll have to work that out in the next couple of days.
Okay. Is it possible for us to be alerted if it changes so that we can, I'd like to attend the meeting, so. And then my second question was regarding the process. So it's a press, but they don't break up the material at all, right? So all of the solid material is as it was when it arrived from the resident's home or from the commercial source, right? They don't grind it up or do anything like that before they press it.
No, my understanding is they don't before they press it.
But it produces a slurry, so are they able to get viscous materials like lipids, waxes, greases, and oils into the slurry, or is it primarily things with a similar viscosity as water that end up in this slurry? I'm wondering how much of the organic material is going to be in whatever they press out.
I think the answer to that is 70 to 80%. That's off the top of my head memory, so that could be inaccurate, but somewhere around there.
70 or 80% of the liquid organic material?
Yes, wet organic, so food
wet
waste
organic.
essentially.
Right, okay.
Yes.
Is that meeting
Commissioner Wilson?
noticed? Do we have any problems if a bunch of us show up?
Jay and Dan, do you have an answer to that?
As long as it's below a quorum, I don't think it'll be a problem.
We have restricted the city council members inviting to this to 2 to try to stay under the radar on it.
Well, we have 2, 4, 6, 8. We have presently 10 commissioners, so there could not be more than 4. So let's just ask this question, because a lot of people work anyway. Who believes they would be interested and could attend one of these on October 2nd? Okay, I want to see all, okay. So it appears that the only folks that would attend potentially would be the 2 members of the Waste Reduction Subcommittee and possibly Commissioner Santor and Commissioner Goins. And if that's the case, we're under the quorum. All right, so the rest of you are noticed. Stay at work or don't come. All right. Good.
You'll let us know what the final.
Right.
Because
whether
you're
it's
saying
a-
that there's sort
yeah.
of two meetings that are going to happen sort of back to back here.
Yeah.
Two different topics.
Just late this afternoon, the additional time was given, and it will be from 1:30 to 3. You're welcome to attend both the inertia presentation and the plastic straw, but we don't know yet which one will start first. Each one
okay.
is given a 45-minute slot.
Okay, so it's an hour and a half meeting, 45 minutes each, but okay, so you'll notice, well, the only people you need to notice are those 4, right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
that'll,
Well,
yeah.
I'll send out email.
Yep.
We should have the answer tomorrow morning, because it turns out the inertia representative cannot be at this meeting, can't support it. So it'll be up to us to decide whether we do that one first or second.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
all right, okay.
Okay, that's it that I have, unless there's more questions on that one. The last item, the battery recycling project. We were notified on July 24th that the city of Palm Springs was awarded a grant from Cal Recycle in the amount of $35,000 for the battery recycling program. So we're very happy about that. And Roy and Dan have additional information, I think.
Vice Chair Clark, Staff Member DeGarmo.
Well, we got the agreement from Cal Recycle. It's been signed by David Reddy and for the city to accept the grant, and it was sent back today to Cal Recycle, QMD. I'm sorry, Cal Recycle, and for their signatures, their final signatures. So once we get that back, we'll get a notice to proceed. At that time, we can begin spending that money.
And there were some activities that we started, kind of a slow start for the project. When we wrote the proposal and made the plan, we based it upon a process that is used by a company called Battery Solutions. That was the basis for the proposal, but there are other companies that do a similar thing, and Dan has been investigating their processes. And we've also started looking at the sites in the city where we wanted to have the drop-off containers. I think there were 8 that were listed in the proposal. I've actually spoken to the general manager of the airport. The airport was listed as one drop-off point, and it's been decided that we wouldn't do that. We wouldn't have a drop-off point there, but we still need to talk to the managers or the staff at the other drop-off points and make sure that it'll work with their hours and the configuration of their buildings and so forth.
Questions?
So the drop-off point, I've seen them in other cities, are like in front of grocery stores and stuff, but is there a benefit received from the city? Is there anything that can be recycled from a used battery, the nickel or zinc or whatever is comprised in the battery?
Yes, there is. The company that we've been working with, Battery Solutions, is a recycler. And our plan is to have drop-off points only at city locations for efficiency and really for feasibility of this program first. We may expand to commercial locations, but we're only using city locations or facilities for drop-off points. But the company Battery Solutions that we looked at, we would ship the batteries once collected to them, and they have a process for physically breaking down the batteries to their constituents and then recycling the constituent parts. And as part of our plan, that's an essential part of our plan. We want to send the batteries to somebody that will recycle the constituents.
And I want to say a thank you to Vice Chair Clark and Dan for getting all that together and finding this grant that brought us the ability to do this.
And Harriet Barron, who's our grant and fund writer.
Okay, and to Harriet as well. Thank you. All right, commissioners, questions of the subcommittee on waste reduction? Yes.
Yeah, I had one
Commissioner
question. Going back to the deployment of the recycling containers, did any of those end up in the dog park?
Yes, one did.
There's one at the dog park.
Okay, thanks.
Right. All right. Thank you. A lot going on, and we appreciate that. Item 3, the Subcommittee on Walkability and Pedestrian Planning. Wilson, Gauthier, Futterman, any report tonight?
We are sad and slightly frustrated to report that there's no update at this time. And we are hopeful that with fair winds and a good pot of luck, we may have something to report at next month's meeting.
Okay. You remain on the standard agenda.
Well, it's been the summer of bike lanes, we could say. So we're hoping that we can shift engineering focus to walkability in the coming month.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right. Item 4, the Subcommittee on Film Festival Programs, Commissioner Gauthier.
Likewise, nothing to report.
Oh, okay, all right. Okay, item 5, at the July meeting, come on up, Jim. We did authorize a subcommittee on bicycle routes and cycling because we've sort of split off our focus so that we have pedestrian planning and walkability focused, and yet there is still, of course, ongoing work related to cycling as well. So, just so you two know, and we'll introduce Jim Flanagan, who is, we appointed him as a citizen member of the Bicycle Routes and Cycling Subcommittee. We still would entertain the possibility of, and expect that there would be other members, and if there is a commissioner, there was not a commissioner interested previously, but if that interest arises or when new commissioners come on, that option would be made available to join Jim. There may be other community members, but we simply wanted to, for you to see Jim's face, know who he is, and let him say hi.
Hi, can I say one thing too?
Please.
Okay, hi, I'm Jim Flanagan, and I came to this commission because I was having problems with bike paths, so now I'm on the subcommittee, thank you very much. But and I was happy to see the new bike paths on Laverne by me. A lot of my neighbors have pointed out they're much less confused about how to negotiate a 75-foot wide lane, and now it's all marked out for them. So they're thrilled, and we are looking for some new members. I thought Grant was going to be a member, but if not, I'll search around for a few, and Joe's going to work with me on that. I do want to add one more thing too. I've been in Portland for the last 3 months, and I did see the influx of not only bike shares, but we have all of a sudden had scooters, and we have a high-speed scooter slalom going down Portland, and we have more agile members in Portland that are able to negotiate around those scooters. But the problem is the scooters got there before the city was planned on what to do with them, so it's caused a lot of mayhem. So it's something you guys may wish to get out ahead of, and I don't know if that's walkability and streets or if that should be in a bicycle advisory group as motorized transportation, but I'm happy to undertake it, and maybe Grant and I could work through that. But it's something to be aware of, and they're just going to show up one day. So
it strikes me, and maybe somebody else has me. It strikes me because some of these are scooters, some of them are electric bicycles, it strikes me as more of a cycle thing than a pedestrian thing. Pedestrian stuff seems like human beings and legs. So does it make sense?
Well, the scooters are on the sidewalks, and they're mostly tourists and kids that, they're going to be gone next weekend, and they're going 15, 20 miles an hour, on sidewalks. So it's something, we talk about, we need to work on enforcement, but yeah, I'd be happy to report
And
back
are-
what
are-
Portland has learned, if that's.
Are scooters
helpful.
legal on sidewalks?
That's the problem. There's
Are scooters legal in bike lanes?
And they get abandoned on sidewalks.
Theoretically, Portland is advised it's scooter not legal on sidewalks, but there's no enforcement, so they're running rampant on sidewalks. So
I would.
they're coming.
I would say, given that there is bike, I'm sorry.
Well,
Mr. Mayor.
I was in San Diego for a couple of weekends this summer also, and they're rampant, the scooters, and they're motorized.
Yeah.
And people, they drop them off, and there's no dedicated space for dropping them off. So you could just come to a random corner, and there are 4 or 5 scooters that are kind of just
Well,
cluttering.
That's also the issue with some of the
bike
bike
share.
share
Bike shares
things.
too. So
Commissioner Friedman?
I have a recollection that this came up at council member comments at last Thursday's council meeting, I believe. Jay, maybe you recall that? But I thought it did, and I thought either council member Holstage or Coors said that the city needs to start getting a look at that. So maybe you can just listen to the tape, but I do have a recollection that council is already starting to look at this. They may want to refer it back to us. They probably would, but I think council is already starting. You want to check with Dr. Reddy or the city clerk who may recall that discussion.
All right. Obviously, we're just sort of reinitiating this subcommittee, which in times past has been extremely active and has waned a bit. Let's make sure that you have. Do you have Commissioner Wilson's email address?
I do.
And
yes.
Commissioner
We
Gauthier's email
corresponded.
address?
I'm not sure if I have yours.
Okay. We can make sure you get it.
Right, we'll get it through
And
Brad.
that
Brad
way,
has it.
you all can communicate about that. Again, it strikes me that motorized things with wheels are different than things with legs, so it seems like you're the wheel guy, they're the leg guys. To draw a bright line somewhere, but if you all sort it out differently, so be it. So
We'll figure it out.
yeah, and yes, Dan.
I just want to ask a question. When I was in Dallas, when we were talking scooters, what I saw in Dallas were motorized, like Razor type scooters. Is that the same
That's
thing
what I'm
that you're talking about?
right there.
Okay.
I think it's Carl's talking about.
Those kinds of
The little
scooters.
two-wheel.
Oh, you were thinking of the.
Okay.
Not the bigger ones like Michelle had or anything, but just they're like the little Razor scooters.
Okay.
That
They're
are motorized.
electric and they're
They're
fast.
motorized, yes. You just stand on them. They
Aha.
go up hills.
Okay, all right. And I was thinking, because I know someone in Palm Springs who is beginning to market Chinese scooters that are a little larger
Like
than
a Vespa kind of?
a little bigger than Vespas. So
Oh.
there's going to be electric scooters that are different than these scooters coming too. So
Scooter A and Scooter B.
yeah, so it's probably worth your coordination. Which person in engineering staff has been working primarily on the bicycle route issues? Do we know?
Well, it was Don, who I know.
It was Don? It maybe still is Don?
Well, originally it was Savat, but Savat's gone.
Right, exactly. Okay, all right, okay.
There were 3 new staff people in engineering.
In engineering, yeah.
I think it's done.
Okay, you think it is Don? Okay, all right. So we'll try to see if Dan can get you Don's email address, just so that you have that contact as well.
And then I'll follow up with Greg and maybe suggest some ways to handle some of this
Okay.
can of worms that I brought up. But thank you very much.
Okay, all right. All right?
It's good to have your help.
Yes. All right. We're at item 6, wellness. Commissioner Baker.
Good afternoon. My report basically was handed out, looks more like this, from Bob and Paul on the smoking issue. So to bring everyone up to date, we had bifurcated this issue. The first part was to enforce the existing Riverside County prohibition against selling tobacco to minors. That went to City Council, but yet has kind of been pushed down the road until the October meeting. So the City Council has yet to address that.
The second October meeting, or maybe there's only one October meeting? Okay.
So TBA.
Okay.
TBD. Second part is then we have sort of a talking points in front of you regarding the second prong, which is the regulation of smoking and tobacco product usage. So it breaks it down and gives you a little more definitions to make it a little more digestible and understanding of what we're trying to achieve. And you'll see it goes from from residents to commercial spaces to public spaces like parks and beaches and stuff, buffer zones. I even noticed on our own building here, the new no smoking sign is on the door, just as you enter here within 25 feet of a business property. So as a point of order, I think right now this is just in a discussion phase for this group. There's no resolution pending at this point yet, so I open up and I would ask Paul or Bob to help if there are any questions regarding these issues.
If you want to come forward, if there are some questions. Now, I thought where we left this, after having had some sense of the commission, was, and recognizing that probably in this issue, we won't write the ordinance, city staff will write the ordinance about this. I thought, Commissioner Baker, that you were going to come forward at some point in not in September, but October, November, December, with some proposed statements. The Sustainability Commission endorses this, and then we would discuss based on that.
Well, you could look at that in that fashion. It's pretty much the same thing. This just breaks it down into a more easily digestible fashion.
Okay.
If that addresses your question.
Well, sort of. I think the rest of the commissioners, help me with my collective memory here. I think we had some concern about item 1, multi-housing. There was some concern about patios, perhaps less concern about the public event spaces. 1 and 2, there was not a uniformity of an opinion, if I'm recalling right. Is that true? So, Commissioner Santoro, is that your hand was up?
It was, yeah. I think there was also significant questions around the enforcement and the cause of action aspects of it as well. So I noticed there's a number 7, sort of, it looks like a list of penalties, but it doesn't get to the enforcement part. So.
Okay.
Commissioner Friedman.
Just as a point of information, since this was not agendized, if there would be any discussion of smoking on the agenda, I would simply recommend that under the Brown Act that the commissioner comments be somewhat limited, and then this, discussion of the substance be deferred to a subsequent meeting. This simply was not on the agenda, and this document was circulated only a few hours ago. So I would simply, in the interest of keeping our Brown Act compliance in order, that we sort of look at this as a status report, which is perfectly fine.
Well, and to your point, Commissioner Friedman, because we didn't get it till later this afternoon, I'm not faulting anyone at all. And I had clear notes that we would not be talking about smoking until October, November, December. I was thinking that we would simply receive this as information tonight.
Correct.
And be sure we understood what we were getting, and direct you to continue to work with community members and others for a future report. How does that was my hunch, not particularly thinking about Brown Act agendized issues, but
Good point.
does that seem like a good thing, also given time?
Okay.
So I would say simply, we have this information. Thank you. And you might reflect back on prior commission discussions on what parts of this we might want to lift out. Because I do think that there was considerable, there's considerable difference of opinion on items 1 and 2, to the degree that those should be included in a Palm Springs ordinance.
Okay. So if I'm to understand correctly, you would like, what exactly would you like to see in October?
Well, or November.
Or, yeah.
I would like to see just a sort of executive, a paragraph of something more simple in terms of the sustainability, as I said before, the Sustainability Commission supports an ordinance related to smoking and tobacco use, which would include these things. And you might just list the bullet points. And then we would discuss that. But other commissioners, I don't think reading, and again, thank you, I don't think reading an 11-page ordinance at this point is helpful because we're not the ones writing the ordinance. Commissioner Goins.
It sounds like you're asking for almost a motion, basically. You're asking for him to.
Not a motion, but a report that would then perhaps prompt a subsequent motion at a subsequent meeting. Yeah. Commissioner Baker, am I being totally unclear?
Partially unclear, yes.
Okay. So what I'm saying is, if you could come with a statement that of specific discussion points that you think might be of some controversy that or debate that we would discuss and then move forward. Or you could come forward simply with, I believe that these are points of agreement and these are the only ones we can move forward. I trust your legal judgment and your consultation with community members. Do you want that in October, or would you rather have that report in November?
October sounds good.
Okay, all right. We'll put that separately as a new business item. All right. Thank you. And Commissioner Friedman, thank you for keeping us in line. Commissioner Baker, what else? Anything else?
Nothing further to report.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Friedman, water.
A couple of things. First of all, as I previously mentioned, DWA has for FY 18-19 a turf rebate program. I did check so far, staff is not, staff meaning essentially parks and recreation and facilities, as far as I know is not, well, I do know that they have not followed up on the Victoria Park turf conversion to Desertscape. So Jay and Daniel, if you could follow up with those folks, because that's potentially $40,000 that's sitting there at TWA waiting for us to go and collect. And TWA does want to see the city do a major project that would call attention to itself. So you could follow up on that. Second is for the summer, there was a 16.5% reduction in potable potable water production in July and 17% in August compared with the same months in 2013, which shows good conservation during a very hot summer. Cumulative savings over the last 12 months is 14.1%. And since DWA put in their 10 to 13% target in June 2016, cumulative savings are 17.3%. So gold star for Palm Springs in particular and the service area for achieving those objectives. Announcement, 1PS is hosting a forum for the DWA board candidates that begins at 6 p.m. on Thursday, October 11th in Council Chamber. Don't know if they'll be televised, but the council chamber will be the location. And finally, Vice Chair Clark got to do the State Water Project tour while I was being a nice Jewish boy in synagogue for Rosh Hashanah. So I will turn it over to him. I want to thank him for the very detailed report.
And thank you for being absent. I really enjoyed the tour. I did send out a committee report about the tour. I won't say much more about it, but there were two parts of it, or two objectives of it. One was to view major facilities and sites in the infrastructure of the State Water Project, and the other was to understand the need and plans for upgrading the water infrastructure. And we visited several different facilities and sites as that are part of the water project, Lake Oroville and the Oroville Dam, and we saw firsthand up close work on the spillway, which was damaged during the heavy rains and flooding at the beginning of the year. They're making really good progress on the repair there. We also spent a good deal of time traveling through the Sacramento-San Joaquin Delta and saw the islands of the channel there. And the Delta is a big part of the State Water Project, where water flows through from north to south and is also stored. And we also visited a pumping plant, which is at the south end of the Delta, where there are pumps that lift water 244 feet into the California aqueduct to move south. Those were interesting parts of the tour. We also had two presentations. One of them really was to, and that was the second one, if you're following in the report, it was the main takeaway of the second presentation, called California's Bay Delta, was that the Delta in its current form is not sustainable. And it's important to plan for what it should be in the upcoming years. There are three threats to the Delta. They're seismic, sea level rise, and subsidence. And basically, seismic is if there's a major earthquake in Northern California, there'll be very considerable damage to the Delta, which will affect our water supply. Sea level rise, as the sea level goes up, salt water would penetrate further into the Delta, and it might preclude pumping any water to Southern California if there's a considerable amount of salinated water in the Delta. And finally, sustenance, which is basically erosion of the farmland, which is in the islands that are in the Delta. In some places, the farmlands in the islands is 30 feet below the level of the channels, and it's quite clear that farming may not be sustainable for many more years. So that was a very good part of the tour. And we also had a presentation called California Water Fix and California Eco Restore. And basically that was a discussion of the plan for doing some repairs in the Delta. And the Metropolitan Water District Board has voted to invest funds to cover a large portion of the cost of the project. And the main part of the project, which you probably read about in newspapers, are two pipelines that would run about 400, I can't see the length. I omitted it from the report, but two 40-foot diameter gravity-fed tunnels that would transport the water from the northern part of the Delta down to the southern part of the Delta, where water is transferred into the aqueduct. But it was a very interesting tour, and I'm glad to have the opportunity to go. And I do have some materials for you, David, which I'll give to you the next time I see you.
Questions?
Quick question. The seismic threat, is the concern or the claim that if there was a large enough earthquake in Northern California and the disruption would be immediate and water supply to Southern California would be immediately at risk or cut off?
I believe that that was the assumption, yes.
Commissioner Freeman, was there anything else in your report?
No, I think those are issues. Obviously, DWA is working closely with MWD, which was the sponsor, and they have previously expressed their support for the water fix for the tunnel. So these are issues that will continue to be discussed at the DWA level. Obviously, MWD is the one that would be writing the checkbook, but the water that we get, what's fascinating about that is we actually do not get any water from Northern California. The contractual right comes from Northern California. The actual water comes from the Colorado River, and that's the tour that I did earlier this year. So it's a really complicated system. And once again, my thanks to Vice Chair Clark for for doing that and completing our, continuing our knowledge.
All right, Commissioner Futterman is absent tonight, and so we are at Commissioner comments. Are there Commissioner comments? Commissioner Friedman.
One last comment. I've spoken a lot as Jay is aware, at the council meeting last Thursday. Council did approve the contract with Tesla for for up to 24 chargers in the new downtown parking lot. So that I'm not sure what the timetable is, but probably sooner rather than later for that to go through. And obviously, council remains concerned, and I guess that's the AQMD potentially grant to make sure that in addition to the ones going in the Tesla ones, that there are opportunities for other universal chargers to go elsewhere in the city. So it asks staff to follow up with council to make sure that we remain in line for AQMD for that.
All right. Commissioner Santora?
Yeah, thank you. Dan sent out a note that I had sent to him to share with all of you. The Palm Springs Art Museum is going to be sponsoring an exhibit called Scraps, which is essentially about 3 designers' alternative use for fashion industry waste. Clippings and so on that they're reusing again. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry with lots of waste that has not being used very well, and this is just another opportunity to incorporate some cultural events with the mission of Art Commission. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention and invite you to one of the tours. I'll be leading tours at the museum for this exhibition starting in October, and I'm happy to arrange a tour for all of you if you're interested in it. It should be really good.
Yes, Vice Chair Clark.
I placed one of these flyers at everybody's seat. This is the listing of the fall library events and classes. You'll note that on Wednesday, October 17th, there'll be a lecture on the migration of monarch butterflies. This was initiated by Christine Hammond and myself, who are the subcommittee on milkweed and monarchs for the commission. It's going to be at 6:30 p.m. on October 17th at the library, so I would encourage you to attend. Secondly, there's another event worth attending at UC Riverside Palm Desert campus. That's on October 12th, which is a Friday. It's the 4th Climate Change Assessment Symposium. It'll be from 10 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. at the campus there on Frank Sinatra Drive. This is open to anybody, but if you are interested, the organizers would like to actually send invitations. So if you're interested in attending, let me know, and I'll send your email address to the organizer, and then you'll get an invitation.
I have a quick question of commissioners. I know that you are aware that the Indian Canyon conversion from one-way north to two-way is proceeding. And I know there's been talk about walkability and making that corridor as pedestrian friendly, and there's been talk about how to make it also appropriate for cyclists. Does it make sense to have someone from city staff or engineering make a, I don't know if we have a presentation. Do we have a presentation scheduled in October? I'm not recalling that we have one queued up. Would it?
Not that I recall.
Is it, does it, or would you be interested in hearing about that? And I asked particularly, perhaps Commissioners Gauthier and Wilson, you two already know all there is to know about that, but would that make sense to have that happen?
It wouldn't hurt.
It wouldn't hurt? Dan, can you see if that's a possibility?
I can.
Okay, and would that be Joel Montalvo, or who do you know who's leading that two-way street charge?
There's a number of different staff who've given presentations to community groups, so I think we could tap into one of them to come by.
Okay, all right. See what you can do. And just again, to remind all of you, insofar as you are able, having a report, having agenda items sent in advance to Dan, and if you would copy Roy as well. We try to create the agenda even 12 or 15 days out, and then it gets massaged a bit. So if you know you've got a motion or a longer report, go ahead and email that information to us so that we can help create that agenda in a timely way. And then certainly any of your subcommittee reports that you have in writing to Dan in time to include them in the packet. And because our next meeting, again, is off schedule, it will not be on the third Tuesday. It will be on Monday, October 22nd, and that is because of a city presentation regarding the redistricting, I think, which conflicted with our meeting. So anyway, that's just a reminder about helping us all be well prepared. And I want to say thanks. I was away for almost 5 weeks in August, and some of that time not in a place where I had internet. And so, so I want to say thank you to all of you, especially Vice Chair Clark and Commissioner Friedman and others who just were doing a lot of work. I know that you were doing work, but you were away as well, Commissioner McCann. But thanks to all of you for your passion and time that you spent over the summer. And we will entertain a motion to adjourn to our next meeting on October 22nd. So moved from Commissioner Santora. Second? Second. All in favor say yes. We are adjourned. Thank you.